Depression is like learning to play the piano. What this has to do with each other, I'll tell you in today's video. Welcome to Soul Tapping. Today, it's about the topic of joy of life training. What do I mean by that? Why should depression be like playing the piano? Learning. So, if you've been depressed for a long time, you're probably used to thinking a lot of negative thoughts. And maybe you've already experienced that it's incredibly difficult for you to think positive thoughts because it feels like your brain is somehow acting on its own. You keep starting to ruminate, the same loops keep coming back, the same negative thoughts, like that won't work anyway, I knew it from the start. Of course, so-and-so doesn't like me, which means that no one likes me. So, it's different for everyone, but it's always somehow tinged with negativity, as if we were wearing these black glasses. And maybe you're also wondering how you should get out of it. Because somehow you can't really think those positive thoughts. There's this inner resistance, like, that's not true at all, and bam, you're back. You're back in the negative. No matter how much effort you put in, it always pulls you back like an invisible rubber band, pulling you back into your negative thought loop. So, what does this have to do with playing the piano? You can't learn to play the piano overnight. Simply because our brain is not designed for us to go from a beginner to a concert pianist in one day. That's not possible. That means new neural connections have to form and be repeated over and over again. So, if you want to learn to play the piano, it's not enough to sit at the piano once or twice. You really have to patiently repeat the same movements over and over. Over and over, because the brain needs it. Constant repetition, so that these synaptic connections strengthen and it becomes easier for you step by step. It's a bit like driving a car. At the beginning, in the first driving lesson, we have to use a lot of attention, a lot of resources, a lot of energy. We use it to focus on how it works. And eventually, it runs on its own. Then we have automated it and drive the car on our own and can even have a conversation while doing it. And that's because the connections in the brain have become like a highway. These paths have been so widely trodden because we have repeated them over and over again, that the brain naturally starts to immediately merge onto this big highway. And it's the same with negative thoughts. The brain wants to save energy. So, basically, it's lazy. It wants to work as energy efficiently as possible. And that means it naturally starts to think exactly the same thoughts that we thought yesterday and the day before and the day before that. It has been found that we think about 60,000 thoughts per day. That's a lot, and I believe 90% of it is the same stuff we've been thinking for the past days, weeks, months, and years. Simply because that's how our brain works. So, the most important first message to you is, if you can't get out of your thought loops, it's not your fault. Depressed people tend to judge themselves and say, I just can't manage it. And I'm so weak, and I'm so dumb, and I'm whatever else. No, you're not. The brain works like this for all of us. That means if you want to learn to think positively, you have to slowly build this ability and teach your brain again. As if you wanted to learn to play the piano. Very patiently, every day, over and over. This means you go through the day with a lot of mindfulness. And that you start by catching yourself in the first step. Especially when you're dwelling on negative thoughts. Because only when you notice it can you change it. You can do mindfulness exercises. For example, you can get a mindfulness app. I have something like that on my phone, for example. It gives off a bell sound at certain time intervals, simply to remind you, oh right, I wanted to briefly tune into the radio here. What am I actually thinking right now? Am I feeling good right now? Am I feeling bad? What was I just thinking? First, what did I think? Second, is this thought true? Is it really true? And third, is the thought useful in relation to my goal of overcoming my depression? So, if the thought is not useful, you can change it. And you do that every now, and then. No one is capable of controlling their thoughts 24 hours a day. Maybe some monks who meditate all day, maybe them, but that's the absolute exception. Normal people can't do that, so it's not a big deal if you can't do it either. But you can slowly ease into it. Again and again, maybe once an hour, set your phone to remind you once an hour to think about what you just thought. And then you change that thought, for example, by turning it around. By rephrasing it differently. Not like, I can't do it anyway, everything is crap anyway, but something like, I am open to it getting a little better every day. They have to be thoughts that you can believe yourself. So affirmations that say, hey, everything is great and I'm so awesome, are so far from where you currently stand that they don't help. They make you more frustrated because they are still too far away. Your subconscious then says, no way, that's not true at all, and then you can't believe it yourself. And then they don't help. That's why it's helpful to rephrase your thoughts in a way that simply opens a door for you. They reopen your door-closing thoughts and say, I am open to this changing in the future. For example, if it's not like that yet. You learn all of this with me. In EFT training, in the Joy of Life training. So when we tap, it's very much about finding the right phrasing. And gradually, with the help of tapping acupressure, change these thoughts. And if you do this very often and really stick with it, don't give up after the third day because you think it's not working anyway, the depression is still there, then think of the concert pianist. He didn't give up on the third day because he said he couldn't even play a scale yet, he just kept at it. And that is crucial for your success. You need to retrain your brain. You need to neglect those massive highways of negative thoughts and focus your attention on the positive thoughts. At the moment, those are still like small footpaths in the brain where you have to exert a lot of energy. It's like hacking your way through the jungle with a machete, more or less. That's why, at first, it feels so difficult to think positive thoughts. But you can train it every day, for 5 minutes, and then it gradually increases. And then, when you pay attention to all the positive things you have in your life, and if you write them down in a gratitude journal or do mindfulness exercises, then the brain eventually starts to automate. And because it is lazy and uncomfortable, it then wants more and more of these positive thoughts because the pathway in the brain becomes wider, and then it starts to automate. Then the process is reversed. And your brain automatically looks for things that you can evaluate as positive. Just like it is now the other way around with the negative lens. That's why. Joy of Life training. You can train that. Self-love. All these topics can be trained. If you're interested in that and want to learn more about what happens in the brain and how all the processes work, then I highly recommend you Google Dr. Joe Dispenza. He has written some great books and conducted brain research, where he discovered that we can essentially create a new self through our thoughts. And it really helped me to read his books. There are also videos on YouTube where you can just take a look. And yes, I thank you very much for listening. If you liked the video, I would appreciate a like, and feel free to subscribe to my channel. If you want to work with me, you can find all the information on my website at www.seelenkopfen.de. Or feel free to join my Facebook group Love Yourself, because you are wonderful. You can also find me there under the name Seelenkopfen. I wish you all the best. You can do it. See you soon, yours, Sabine.